Today we're going to do another discussion about speculating about episode 9, but we're going to kind of focus it in a little bit. We're going to take a look at the list of confirmed characters that we have, and we're really just going to speculate on if they are going to survive the film, what the likelihood of them dying is, and how we would maybe want to see that story told if they do die for some of these characters. You know, there are some characters who are going to be showing up in this film who have been in literally every single movie, like C-3PO and R2. You know, are they going to get killed off? You know, and if so, how's it going to be done? So we just thought it would be fun to go through and do that. Rob has the list here of all of them, and we're just going to kind of go through in whatever order Rob has them listed. So start us off, Rob. Who's the top of the list?
Okay, so the first one we have on the list is everyone's favorite princess turned freedom fighter turned general, yeah. Leia Organa.
Yeah, I mean, because with Carrie Fisher passing, it's going to be tricky to see how they handle Leia in this movie.
Certainly, it needs to be handled well. They're using archive footage because of the actor's passing. So, how are you expecting them to broach this sensitive? Because it is sensitive.
Yeah, that's the thing about it, is that Carrie Fisher was such a hero to everyone, and she was such a beloved person. So it's almost kind of hard to broach the topic and kind of talk about how it's going to be done. I mean, from a creative standpoint, in my head, it makes sense for her to potentially already, for Leia to have already passed by the time this movie starts, and maybe the archive footage gets used in like a hologram as like a callback to the, Help Me Obi-Wan Kenobi, You're My Only Hope. Potentially it could be used in that way. Maybe Ben sees that hologram. Maybe it's maybe Lando sees it. That's what I would sort of expect. Carly, do you have any thoughts on Leia?
I mean, I think the hologram is interesting. I think the potential of like the world between worlds, maybe seeing some sort of flashback in that would be possible.
Yeah.
I also just I don't know what the footage is, so it's kind of hard to say. I wouldn't be entirely surprised if she's still alive at the beginning of this movie and that she dies sometime in the course of it. I think there are a lot of possibilities just depending on what the footage is.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. The idea that Kylo or Rey may visit the world between worlds and
I think it's possible, yeah.
Yeah, they may just peer in on Leia, at that time. Maybe Kylo sees Leia,
like during a scene that maybe he didn't ever know happened, kind of thinking that maybe she didn't love him or something like that. And maybe we see something that
and she didn't
gives
talk
him some new perspective.
A lot about Kylo.
Yeah, she didn't talk about Kylo to anyone in the Resistance. They didn't really even know who he was. So
right. So there's possibility that maybe there were lines about that, and then they decided they didn't need it.
And then I could also see maybe some of it being used in like hologram form, maybe as her reaching out to Lando or something.
Yeah, that could be interesting too. But with Leia, it's just a tricky subject to broach, and we know that from what her family has said, they're pretty. They think the way they've used the footage is touching and fits. So it's one of those things where it's just kind of hard to speculate on, because it's such a wild card when an actor passes, just creatively, because it throws a potential wrench in whatever you were planning. Because we know that they were looking at potentially making this movie really Leia's movie, and with Carrie Fisher passing, it definitely brought a lot of challenges.
And regardless, it's going to be a high wire act, because you're not only balancing a beloved character. I mean, I'm glad to hear that the family thinks that it was properly being used.
Yeah.
But again, the family is also viewing her as the actor and that entire body of work, and this is her final film.
And it's going to be hard not to view it that way because of how beloved just Carrie Fisher herself is. Like, not even just Leia, but how beloved Carrie Fisher is as an icon. It's going to be tricky.
When Han Solo died in the movie, it was not Harrison Ford's final film.
No.
So we only had to be concerned about, did we properly allow Han Solo's storyline to end? But now, how J.J.
How do we,
Abrams
say
is going
goodbye?
to balance
How do we say
that.
goodbye?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's. So I think we've kind of talked about all we really can with Leia, and again, that gets into Carrie's legacy, which could be a whole discussion in and of itself. But let's move on to the next character. Who you got for us, Rob?
So we have another favorite of one of us here at the channel. We have General Hux.
Yes.
General
General Hux.
General Hux. Carly, you are the local resident General Hux fangirl.
That is me.
That is you.
That is the cross-eyed bear. Proudly.
Talk to us about General Hux. Does he survive?
Okay, well, I can understand strong arguments for why he doesn't survive, and I'm open to them. But I want him to survive so much that I'm going to say no, that I think he will survive this movie.
Okay. So you want him to survive. You think him surviving and having to face some sort of...
I think him surviving would be an interesting twist on what we're used to seeing in Star Wars. I think because, this war itself is already an answer to the Galactic Civil War. We've already seen rebels rise up and defeat the Empire, and they created a government that didn't really work well enough to keep the same thing from happening again. So I think in order for, Episode 9 to fully progress anything, it kind of has to end differently than the way the Galactic Civil War did, which was pretty much total annihilation of the Empire. So I think it would be a little more interesting if we got some of these characters to reform or survive and have to deal with these actions, to kind of teach more people in the galaxy really what this was about, what went down. And I think General Hux would be an interesting way to do that, especially considering his complicated past in the first place.
Yeah, Hux is a character who, honestly, when you look at his childhood and his backstory and his upbringing, honestly, there's a tragedy there.
Yes.
Heavily abused.
And I think it's very possible that this, Episode 9 could just end it in full tragedy where he never got the opportunity to do anything else. But I also think there's opportunity for other things there.
I think Hux is potentially what a lot of people view Kylo Ren as, which is the character who does have a tragic early life story to a degree, but is now too far gone.
Yes.
Because that's what a lot of people think is interesting about Kylo. They'll say, his fall is tragic, but he's too far gone now, and that's the tragic thing about him. And I don't feel that way about Kylo, but I definitely feel that way about Hux.
No, I understand that.
But Hux is a military leader.
Yes.
Even in the real world, we don't really expect our military leaders to wear their hearts on their sleeves.
Yes.
We do want them to be cold, calculating, and get out there and get their job done.
Right.
That single-mindedness that I see in Hux, I wouldn't have a problem being in a 4-star general.
Yeah.
And in charge of the U.S. forces either, because military thinking is a very different style.
That gets into how he was raised, by the OG General Hux, by Brendel, who was incredibly abusive while at the same time grooming Armitage to be this singular...
To believe that he was the most important person in the galaxy.
Exactly.
Now, also, Hux does say something interesting in The Last Jedi. He does say, "You mean to command my army."
Yes.
Does that imply that, as a general, he was only in charge of the actual military ground forces?
No. Hux is in charge of literally everything except, what Snoke was in charge of. Hux is the highest ranking man in the First Order other than Supreme Leader Snoke. He, in fact, in all the visual dictionaries and stuff, it talks about he wanted a different title because there are other generals of the First Order, but he's basically the High General. But Snoke just refused to give him another title, even though he was in charge of everything. He wanted to be called Supreme Marshal or
Grand Marshal.
Grand Marshal.
Yeah.
Do you think? Well, I don't think that
He wants a
Kylo Ren
different
is going to
title.
give him that title. That's another question. Do you think that Ren is going to put someone above Hux?
That's a good question. I doubt it.
Maybe even give him the title of Grand Marshal. Maybe one of these new actors we've heard is going to come in and be like, yeah, this guy's going to be your boss.
It's possible, but at the same time, I think that Kylo Ren kind of knows that General Hux will do anything, like, well. And I don't know if he's going to trust just some random person with that. Like, he very well could. There's a clear rivalry there. But Hux is very good at his job, and I think Kylo knows, to some extent, not to make Hux mad.
Yeah, I mean, Hux has
Because
a
Hux
history
is
of
already
making
mad,
people
but Hux
disappear.
has a history of making people disappear.
Yeah. So, let's assume he does die. How would you want to see that played out in the movie?
I would want it to be a standoff, a personal standoff between him and Poe Dameron, who I see as his, like, arch enemy on, like, there's the hero trinity and the bad guy trinity, and I think Finn and Phasma have had their moments, and Rey and Kylo will have theirs. And I think Poe Dameron should get, like, face-to-face contact with General Hux. I don't want it to be in, like, an X-Wing or just him to be blown up in a ship. I would like something more face-to-face.
Yeah, I mean, because when you look at Poe and Hux, they're both kind of
They're
very
opposites.
intense
Poe,
about their respective...
like, they had very different
sides.
upbringings because they were both alive during the rebellion. Like, Poe was born right around the Battle of Endor. They're the oldest people, like, on their respective sides. Kylo and Phasma were both... I mean, Phasma was about Hux's age. But they're the eldest people of their trinities. And they were both around during that time. And Hux was born into the Empire and has never known anything else. He's never known that the other side could be better. And Poe was born into the rebellion, and he's got the heart of a rebel, and he doesn't believe that there's anything good in the Empire. So they're just kind of polar opposites, and I want some more interaction or something there.
Yeah, I agree. And that actually is good because I'm sneaking a peek at the list, and Poe is actually the next character.
perfect.
Yeah, Poe's the next character up on the list. I would be shocked if Poe dies.
Oh no, if he, like, I don't know, I kind of think Poe's gonna die.
You think?
If it comes down to, like, a Hux-Poe standoff, I think they would both die, personally. I think it's gonna be one of those 300 moments, if I had to decide.
Yeah.
Well, we also we had a 300 moment, sort of, with all those transport ships being blown up. There's such a small group of them left. They all fit on the Millennium Falcon, the entire Resistance, essentially. But, yeah.
Yeah.
If Hux is going to die, I want it to be a one-on-one standoff, exactly like you
Yes.
said. Because to be an Imperial
that'd be
officer,
perfect.
there was only two ways to die.
Yeah, just on
Darth
a
Vader
ship.
killed you, or you got blown
Yeah,
up as
and
a
I want
nobody.
something different.
And even in Last Jedi, we had the moment where they had the destroyer
Yeah.
and the general has that that defiant look out
Oh,
as
yeah.
the flames are coming. It was beautiful cinematically, but that's how every officer dies.
Yeah, exactly. And with Poe, we kind of talked a little bit about it in our last video with Poe, having learned his lesson, but also still very
I
intense
think Poe
on
is
his
still kind
hatred
of
for the First
yeah,
Order.
like I think Poe's still kind of going to be an antagonist to the Resistance, to like Rey and Finn and Rose, and that he doesn't want to come to some sort of understanding with the First Order.
Like,
and I
he
think
doesn't-
that would be how Hux and Poe kind of both go, is that neither of them are willing to make compromises and prevent this war from happening again 30 years from now. Like they both want it to end today by completely annihilating the other side. And so for that reason, they both kind of have to go.
Whereas, Finn and Rose have the opportunity to expand on the save what
And-
you
yeah.
love and try to free people from inside the First Order.
Yes.
Which Poe, ain't nobody got time for that,
Yeah.
is essentially his potential outlook. So that could be interesting. So, Rob, who's next?
Well, we have an old fan favorite. He died in Legends, but one of the reasons that Disney kind of made all of Legends go away was so that they could bring Chewbacca back.
Yes.
And I think we were all very happy. I hope that he doesn't get killed by a moon crashing into him again.
Now,
But
yeah.
I would not be surprised if they got rid of Chewbacca again, because Chewbacca is a great character cinematically,
Yeah.
but for everything else, he is horrible to write for. because you always have to have another character explain what he says in a book. Authors always hated writing Chewie and everything. They always would send him off to his home planet just because they didn't want to have to deal with writing about Chewbacca. And they were very happy when they were able to kill him off because they didn't have to explain him away every book anymore. And since the entire series is done, Disney could kill him off at this point, and I think people would be okay with that as long as he had an on-screen death.
I could see him dying. Chewbacca is one of the characters who I could, after this movie's over, I could potentially see him retiring or something like that. It's difficult to say. Chewbacca is a character that, everyone loves. He's everyone's favorite. He's everyone's favorite scary giant teddy bear in Star Wars. Do you think he'll die, Carly? Do you think he'll maybe have a moment with Ben?
I don't think he'll die.
You don't think so?
I would be very surprised if he died. He may or may not have a moment with Kylo Ren / Ben Solo.
He's essentially his
But
uncle.
I really don't think he's going to die.
Okay. If he does die, I mean, I assume we would all want to see it in some sort of heroic light, potentially. I mean,
Yeah.
Han's death was really tragic, really kind of gut-wrenching. So, I mean, Chewie could potentially have that more traditional, like, hero sacrifice death in the, third act. But I don't know that anyone
mean-
really wants to see that.
Or see him going home to his family.
Yeah,
I would,
like retiring, I would understand.
Yeah.
for
if they
Chewie.
showed him just going back to Kashyyyk or Kashyyyk.
Kashyyyk, yeah.
I usually pronounce it Kashyyyk, but
I
everyone
mean,
has their own
everyone in
pronunciation.
Star Wars pronounces it all differently, so
Yeah, I can't blame anyone on that. But yeah, he comes from a planet that was almost always encapsulated in war, and maybe for him to go back during a time of peace, it would be a nice way to end his line. But definitely, he's going to have some kind of closure to the series because Han no longer being around.
yeah.
Is he going to continue on with Rey? Which brings us to our next one. No, it doesn't. It doesn't bring us to our next one. We got that way down the list.
Oh my gosh. All right, well, who's the next one? I think
Maz is our next
Oh,
one.
okay.
Which
Chewie's girlfriend.
Chewie's girlfriend.
Yes.
Yeah.
Chewie's girlfriend. So, Maz Kanata, a much more important character in Force Awakens than she was in Last Jedi. I personally hope we see her come back in a bigger role. I love Maz. She's fantastic. And I think that it's probably fair to speculate that the Resistance is probably going to be turning to the more underworld side of things to get help fighting the First Order, and I think Maz is the natural character to go to for that. So, I mean, I think there's no doubt in my mind that she'll probably play a larger role, but is she going to survive?
I mean, I say yes. I think she'll survive. If she dies, it'll probably be in some heroic sacrifice, but I think she'll probably survive.
I don't want her to be Yoda 2.0. I don't want her to be the emotional mid-movie death.
No, I still think that'll be Leia, but yeah.
Yeah, I think she'll survive and do well, and she'll get married to Hondo Ohnaka.
To Hondo Ohnaka, they'll get married. Fair enough. All right, well, let's talk about some series staples, because coming up next, we have both C-3PO and R2-D2. Let's really get into that. These are two characters who have been in, like, everything Star Wars. They've certainly been in every movie, with the exception of the anthology films, but they've been in every episode film. This is the end of the Skywalker saga. Do C-3PO and R2-D2... did they die? Did they go down with the saga? What happens to them?
I can't imagine Star Wars without the two of them. They've been there since the beginning. They were essentially the wedding rings of Padme and Anakin. They exchanged droids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
After they got married, you would always see Anakin with R2, and you'd always see her with C-3PO.
Yeah.
And also, one of the original ideas was that R2 was the storyteller for the Star Wars. If he passes on, I don't know what happens to droids if he gets recycled or whatever the term is, but deactivated. would be the best thing?
I mean,
What would
they were the eyes of the audience in episode 4 to a degree, because I know George Lucas has talked a lot about how he was inspired by a lot of older Japanese like samurai films.
Hidden Fortress.
By
by Kurosawa.
Yeah, which focused primarily on these two sort of bumbling characters who get caught up in this big giant war and this big conflict, and so that's kind of almost what C-3PO and R2-D2 were in the original film for George Lucas from a writing perspective, and so they kind of have been this constant in the films. I would be shocked to see them go. I don't think J.J. Abrams is going to make that choice. I think J.J. Abrams... I've heard it accused of J.J. Abrams that he tends to play things a little bit safe. So I would be... But I mean, at the same time, he killed Han Solo. So I mean, I'm not sure how much that criticism rings true, but I would be surprised to see him kill off R2 or C-3PO.
Personally, I say R2 goes and C-3PO lives.
Why?
I just think that R2 is kind of the one who has been like the storyteller and stuff, and this is it. This is episode 9. This is the end of the Skywalker saga, and I think that his role is basically done. Like, he's old. He acts old. Like, in these movies and stuff, he kind of acts like the grumpy old man or whatever, and I think his story is pretty much done. I don't know that he has much more he really wants to do, especially with Luke gone now.
That's a good point.
Whereas C-3PO, his memory gets wiped and he gets started over. He never really has gotten to the level that R2 has, so I can see C-3PO standing around.
That's true. He
but
did
I
get
think
a mind
R2
wipe between 3 and 4.
No,
so.
C-3PO doesn't remember a lot of his original events. He's not as wizened and old and tired of the world as I feel like R2 is.
That's fair.
So even if R2 didn't die, I would not be surprised if shortly afterward he just kind of logs out for good this time. He did between episode 6 and Force Awakens.
What Lando's droid from the from the Solo movie?
What, L3?
L3. How L3 became the Millennium
Yeah.
Falcon.
Yeah.
R2 has never, according, as far as we know in canon, ever had his memory wiped.
Right.
Yes.
And so it would be hard to let that sort of institutional memory go. Possibility of him getting downloaded into something else?
Yeah, that's possible.
Yeah, I could see that, but I would have never considered the idea of R2 dying until just 5 seconds ago when Carly explained her thoughts on it, and I actually kind of dig that idea.
Yeah, I feel like he's kind of done, and he just wants a break. He wants
a break. He's done. Well, yeah, I mean...
He's had to deal with this most dramatic family in the world for 60 years now.
R2
I think if one goes, the other would have to go. I would see...
See, I think
if you're getting rid
C-3PO
of
would
both,
stay.
I would think you'd get rid of C-3PO first, and then you'd have R2 go through this moment of...
See, I feel like we would just
pain
wipe
and anguish and
C-3PO's
just go
memory,
after
and he would be fine.
No,
and then that would
yeah.
be kind of be sad in and of itself, but he
then
would be okay.
C-3PO wouldn't really be C-3PO any... I mean,
But he got
Yes,
a
he
mind
would.
wipe in between
Yeah.
3 and 4. He's gotten his mind
very
wipe before.
different droid when he came back in 4, though. He was a
Yes.
pilot. He was a useful character. He was not bumbling. He was, like he was designed to be. He
Yeah.
was not the problematic character of 3-4, where R2 is always saving him and fixing all the problems that he sort of creates.
Yeah, I mean, R2-D2 is sort of this piece of the Skywalker story that gets passed on from Skywalker to Skywalker. Although it's kind of funny, he just started out as just a common astromech droid as part of the Naboo, a part of the Naboo forces, and just fell in with this group of crazy people in episode 1.
Who
and
ended up being important.
and he ended up just kind of he kind of comes from nothing.
Yeah.
No one made he was this droid who stood out amongst all the other astromech droids.
The only reason C-3PO got anywhere was because he was created by Anakin Skywalker. His dad kind of put him into
which was
fame.
never something that I was super big into as an idea, but it does make C-3PO and R2-D2 inherently more tied to the story of the Skywalkers. And I think R2-D2 more so than C-3PO, I agree. I think I think if one of them dies, it's R2, and I think it could be played as not necessarily sad or tragic, but as like he is ready to
Yeah.
let his story finish, and I almost the same way that Luke's.
Yeah,
Like, Luke-
exactly.
almost
Like
the same way that
R2 is
Luke
attached
passed.
to Luke in a way that apparently C-3PO has been attached to like Leia this whole time. So he's got more attachments to Leia and that side of the family. So if like Kylo ever does come back, or depending on what happens with Kylo, I think C-3PO has more to stick around for.
But also, they're basically now free agent droids. They don't have owners. R2 sat in a corner the whole time Luke was gone. So he was just more like being moved around as needed because he was deactivated, essentially. And
Yeah.
C-3PO was with Leia, who's still his
Yeah.
owner. Now, Leia's gone. Luke's gone. There's no clear ownership. I guess technically Kylo would have
Yes.
gotten both of them, which he may be interested in C-3PO or R2 because they were his grandfathers.
I don't know that if he
But-
had an emotional attachment to one of them, it would be C-3PO, I think for sure.
Because
Not
he was right
R2.
there in the
Yeah.
family the whole time, and R2
Yeah.
was always Master Luke's
Because we know
droid.
for sure, like, that Ben grew up with, like, droid nannies and stuff. We
Yeah.
weren't told that it was C-3PO necessarily, but we know they had C-3PO, so it's possible. But we know he grew up with a lot of droid nannies.
I would
and
like to see the
We
interaction.
meet one of them in, like, the solo book. So, yeah, I think there's just a lot of interesting stuff there. I think these two characters are clearly very divisive. and
C-3PO
there's a
coming
lot
up to
go
Kylo
with.
and just being like, "Young man, I."
And that's what breaks him. That's what
that's when Kylo's just like, "Oh God."
Yep, turns out like C-3PO just takes his leg off and hits him over the head, and that's how Kylo goes down. No, we'll wait. That was my prediction. We'll hold off.
Okay, who's next? I think we've got C-3PO and R2-D2 pretty well covered. What do we got next?
Well, it's becoming more of a duo, but the next person on the list is Finn, and then it's Rose. But let's just start with Finn individually first.
I kind of want to start with Finn and Rose. I love them both.
I
And I think
view
they'll.
them as a couple.
I think they'll share the same fate anyway. So.
I adore
I
Finn and
agree.
Rose. Rose was a character that really grew on me upon multiple rewatchings and just upon further reflection. Rose is just a character I like. Finn is a character I like, and I think both of them are set up to essentially be this like powerhouse couple in the not just as a romantic couple, but like just a powerhouse for good in the Resistance who I think are on the same page in that they both want to save what's good in the galaxy as opposed to focusing so hard on destroying what's evil in the galaxy. Like I think they kind of represent the purest, most sort of
They represent real justice and not like revenge or.
like
anything.
they represent kind of the purest idea of what Star Wars kind
Yeah.
of could be. They represent that. And I want to see them potentially trying to lead a revolution from the First Order from within. Because like what you were saying, Carly, it's always a cycle. It's always a republic that has issues. So then, a separatist group or an empire comes up. The republic overthrows them. Then that republic has trouble getting on its feet. And then another group, it's just this cycle of this perpetuating cycle. So for Finn and Rose to work together to lead a revolution from the inside, I think that's how you end this trilogy in a way that primes the universe for like a potential outside threat. So I would be shocked if they die. I would be shocked
Yes.
to see either of them
I
die.
agree. I would be really surprised if either of them are dead at the end of this movie.
What do you think, Rob?
Well, I don't disagree at all. I think both of them will survive. Now, I do wonder because at the end of because clearly Rose confessed her love
Yes.
to Finn.
Yeah.
Finn just had like kind of a meh reaction shot.
Well, I mean, he was just shocked. Like, he was just...
right.
I mean, when
Which
he
anyone
was, like, when he was over her in the very end in the Falcon, like worrying over her, I think that was kind of enough of a response for me personally.
But we clearly can still see Finn has a thing for Rey.
See, I think he pretty much got over that.
I don't... See, that kind of gets into the novelization a little bit,
Yeah.
because the novelization really does a very good job of addressing that. Finn is kind of in love with the idea of Rey because of how they first met and stuff like that. And in meeting Rose and going on the adventure they go on, he kind of starts to develop a more real understanding of people. I very much doubt that the idea that Ray,
I really
Rose
don't think
likes
there's going to be a
Finn-
love triangle
Yeah,
because
no.
no.
If the idea that Rose likes Finn, but Finn's kind of hung up on Ray, if that becomes like a story beat in episode 9,
I really don't think it will.
I'm not gonna be happy. But I don't think they're gonna do that.
Yeah.
I would be surprised.
I just don't think the movie quite closed it off enough.
No, I agree. I think
I
The
think
Last
there
Jedi
needs to
didn't
be
close
something to mention
anything
it.
very definitively, personally, but that's a whole other issue.
And I do have a question about the tracker, just since we're on there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Finn had the tracker,
Yeah.
Yes.
but then Leia has the tracker on the transport.
They kept trading it between everyone. Poe had it for a while.
Okay, that's right.
Yeah,
Poe
he gives
had
it.
at
He
one
gives it
point.
to Poe. Yeah.
That's right, because I forgot about that.
Yeah, Finn trusts Poe more than anyone else on the ship, so he gives it to Poe, and then
Yeah.
it gets back to it just goes around everyone.
But no, it's just it's going to be interesting to see how, because you're right, they didn't close out much
Yes.
anything in that movie.
They did not. They left a
so-
lot of things
They
still
opened
possible.
Yeah, they opened a lot of doors and then didn't really make as far as like Kylo and Rey and Finn and Rose, and we don't exactly get a definitive what's going to come of that relationship, but it brings up the ideas.
But I agree. I think either both will live or spurned lover thing. Rose goes crazy. But I think that.
I don't think so. But
Ooh,
yeah.
I would have problems if they did that, but I don't think.
Oh yeah, I mean the beauty of what they set up in Last Jedi between the two of them, where the saving what you love, but you don't love me back, psycho girlfriend. I think that could be an issue.
I think that's a separate movie.
That's
It's another franchise.
that would be bizarre to see.
But it's an interesting thought. Maybe in the world between worlds, we'll see.
Does the World Between World just show you history, or does it show you like parallel universes?
It does, based on what we saw through Ezra Bridger going through that temple door.
It seems to just show history.
And the future.
And
I mean,
future.
it shows the whole timeline.
Right,
It
the
doesn't show
timeline,
all.
but it doesn't show
And
alternate.
possibilities, because he sees his parents and has a small conversation with them through
Yeah.
that.
Oh,
And it
maybe.
is assumed that he could go back to his parents if he wanted to, and it would be a different timeline where they would be happy. Maybe the empire never rises. Who knows what that other
Was
little
that real,
timeline
or was that just what Palpatine showed him?
Yeah, I thought that was just a vision.
thought that was a vision that
was
Palpatine
trying to-
created.
Yeah.
It
I thought that was
appears that it was
separate from the world.
definitely something he was seeing through the portal, because again, Palpatine wasn't actually in the room, but that doesn't mean Palpatine was an extremely powerful Force wielder.
Yeah.
And he had been able to on his own get into the world between worlds at other times, or at least access to the portal.
I just want episode 9 to kind of be like Into the Spider-Verse, but it's Into the Force-verse. We just have a bunch
It's
of...
just really weird.
Yeah.
And I liked when this idea was originally given. People didn't like the world between worlds initially, but now it seemed to be like, yeah, I'll be okay with that being in the movies.
So who's next?
Okay, yeah, we do have to get. So we're going to back off a little from the main ones. So we're going to get into a couple of background characters. So we've got Connix is next on the list.
I think Connix could potentially get more of an important role in this movie. I kind of hope she does. Like, I like Connix. She's fun. I like her. I mean, she hasn't had much to do in these movies, but I like Connix. I like what we know of her. And with Carrie Fisher passing, I think Billy Lord could potentially have a more significant role, if only, if there is some sort of Leia speech about her passing, like I could see Connix being part of that, just, given their relationship outside the films.
I mean, she's like Poe's most trusted confidant in the main ranks of the Resistance, it seems. She's definitely the one he trusted in Last Jedi with like the whole plan and stuff.
Yeah.
So I think she's probably going to be more important. I think she's going to live,
I think so too.
if I had to guess.
I don't have a ton to say on
Yeah.
her, but I think she'll probably live.
No,
and
this is-
carry on the...
Then again, I don't think any of us expect Admiral Akbar to just get blown off the face of the earth. Well, I mean, out the front of a starship would be more accurate. But, she's a relatively minor background character that we like to see on screen. She's an interesting person, but I think that she's like any of the rebel officers from the original. You see them real quick, you know they're a part of it,
Yeah.
and you don't really wonder what happened to Mon Mothma at the end of Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
She's just there to make the announcement,
Yeah.
but clearly became a much larger part of Star Wars as time went on. And I think Connix would have that chance to be someone similar, more like a Mon Mothma type of character.
And who's up next?
So another one is Snap Wexley.
Temmin Snap Wexley. I love Snap Wexley. If you've read the Aftermath trilogy, I hope you love Snap Wexley also. Snap Wexley's a delightful character. Really, I just hope we get to see more of Black Squadron in Episode 9. I would be very excited about
He
that.
had that little droid, Mr. Bones.
Mr. Bones,
Yeah.
a modified first generation battle droid who was terrifying and adorable and amazing. Carly, do you think we'll see a bigger role for Snap and /or Black Squadron? Do you think they'll survive? Or do you think that maybe we've got a lot of new characters? You know, maybe Black Squadron won't get much of a moment in this movie. What do you think?
I mean, I think they'll be there, at least like Snap and maybe Jess. I don't think we're going to spend a lot of time with them. But, I mean, we didn't even really talk to Snap much in the first movie.
No.
So I really doubt that they're going to become like major characters. They might be there to support Poe or to support Rose and Finn, just in like whatever's going on with the Resistance. But yeah, I don't really foresee them being super major important.
I think they are potential characters who could die, who could be, Snap could be a character who dies tragically in some large final battle or something like that. I love Snap a lot. He's one of those characters where it's like, in reality, when you just look at him in the movies, he doesn't have that much screen time. He's probably not going to be a major player in Episode 9, but because he's one of the main characters of a whole trilogy of novels, it just kind of feels like you want to see him more. But I doubt we're going to get too much time with him. But I would potentially like him to live, because I think Black Squadron could go on to have adventures post Episode 9, in the same way we, had like Rogue Squadron books and stuff like that. I think we could get more about Black Squadron and maybe what they do after.
The Wedge Antilles of the
Yeah. I mean, I could see a Black Squadron being led by Snap instead of Poe.
Yeah, me too. I think so too.
I think that would be an interesting
which would be
little story to
fitting
tell.
considering that Wedge is the one who gave Temmin that nickname of Snap. So I think it's almost like a passing of the torch of kind of, who's going to be the leader of the squadron that we get a bunch of books about, because I think that'd be really fun.
And they did ask the actor who played Wedge to come back.
Dennis Lawson.
But he turned down the first two. And of course, we don't know everyone who's going to be in here. I'm sure there's going to be a ton of people that are just
Yeah, there could be
real
surprise.
quick
There are
moments
going to be
and-
some surprises. I would be willing to bet.
I would not be surprised even if a major character was not announced until we got very close to the
I could see that.
show.
But okay, so Snap. So who's next?
Okay, so we're gonna bring it back up a little. We've got another original trilogy, and probably the one that we were wondering where he was and
This
what
whole
was going
time.
on. It's
Yeah.
it's everyone's fan favorite, Lando Calrissian.
Lando Calrissian. Lando's a character who, of course, has been getting kind of more popular again because of Solo, and he's gotten some comics, but he's always been popular. I mean, people love Lando. Carly, what do you think Lando's odds of surviving are? Do you think they're good?
I think his odds are pretty good. I think just based on the statistics of the fact that everyone else from the original trilogy is dead who were major characters, I think he's got pretty good odds for surviving.
You think that, they're not going to kill him off too? That he'll be the
I
one
doubt
who
it.
maybe sticks
I
around?
mean, I could see it. Like, I can see that happening. I just think there would be some backlash from people who felt like they killed off all of the original characters. So I kind of doubt it.
Yeah. And it's because Han and
Especially
Luke's...
because of how popular Lando is.
Yeah. Han and Luke's deaths both served the story in a great way, and I would not want them undone.
there's
Who-
not much that Lando can serve to this story that I foresee that another
would
character
require
couldn't
him to
do.
die.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
only time that it would have been okay was Return of the Jedi during the trench run
Yeah.
with the original Millennium Falcon. I would like to see Lando survive and get the Falcon back.
Yeah.
But that will all depend on
mean,
other
yeah.
characters. But we do.
Yeah, but we'll get to them in a minute
Yeah.
because I mean, with Lando, yeah, I mean exactly because like if Carrie Fisher had not passed, we're not really sure what they were gonna do with Leia, and so I agree. I don't want to necessarily have to see every single original trilogy character die on screen. I think Han and Luke's deaths were both important. I think Lando is definitely the one who shows up and potentially lives through whatever happens in Episode 9. Do you think he'll have a moment with Kylo?
I
Do you-
hope so.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's really hard to say because we don't know what Kylo's going through. We don't know what his part of the story is going to be. We don't know if he's coming back or if he's staying.
Right.
Has
It's-
Lando even shown up in canon post Return of the Jedi yet?
Yeah, he's been in like the what is it called? The Last Shot. He sees like Baby Ben and stuff. Like
Yeah.
he interacts with him.
Baby Ben.
That's right.
Baby,
Last Shot has a
he-
mixture of.
He is Uncle Wanwo,
Uncle Wanwo.
and he calls him Little Starfighter.
He does. It's adorable.
Very cute.
And that's I mean, people are thinking they're gonna reference that, and I doubt that.
Oh no, that
Obviously
would be
not.
a deep cut reference. I don't.
If he calls Kylo, I don't. First of all, I don't think he's calling Kylo Little Starfighter anymore.
No deep cut references off the table when it comes
That's
to Star
true.
Wars.
That's true.
Because when someone says that on screen, someone in the theater will go,
I mean, yeah, if he said it, I would die. But
we
yeah.
all saw Solo together.
We all saw
We did,
Solo
and it
when
was so
when
good.
Tobias Beckett pushed Aura Singh off a cliff,
And I, yeah.
and when
just
when
announced,
gasped
didn't show,
audibly in the
just
theater.
said it.
and when Kira is a master of Terras Kasi martial arts, I think their deep cut references are definitely on the table.
That's
for sure,
true.
for sure.
And probably, I mean, there wasn't really it was still a kind of a deep cut reference, but obviously everyone else knew what it was too. Literally, at least two of us stood to our feet when
Maul-
Darth Maul,
Yes.
when we saw, when we kind of started to figure
Like,
out
not
who it
even
might be,
before we
we
saw.
started to
Yes.
stand up, and
I
I
know.
stood that whole scene.
Yeah. It
I
was
didn't know
so
what to
good.
do.
For reference, we were on the very back row. We were not those people.
were not
we
blocking
were in the
anyone,
very back row.
promise.
But yeah, I mean, for
Just
for,
stretching my legs.
for Maul to show up with his Rebels lightsaber with. That's a whole other
Yeah,
topic.
that we'll talk about another day.
We'll have to talk about that. Okay, so Lando,
yes.
I think we've kind of covered a little bit here. Lando,
I would like to see him get the Falcon back at the end. I think that would
Yeah.
be a good thing, a good story arc for his character. He's gonna,
See,
he can
then
retire
does
back.
he
with
get it back or does he give it to Chewie?
Again, depends on what happens
Yeah.
to Chewie. I think Rey is the natural.
I don't know if she'll keep it though. I don't know if she
Expectation.
has like much attachment to the ship or anything. Like, because she's only really realistically been around for, if this story, like, however long this story takes plus a week.
Yeah, Chewie's
So-
really just helping out at this point.
Yeah.
But it seems like he has the possession of the ship. But I think if she wanted it and Chewie wanted to retire, he would get the ship.
I mean, that's possible.
But
yeah.
Lando, I think, would be the best person to get it beside Chewie. If Chewie
Yeah.
does not get the ship, I think it should go to Lando.
Yeah, I would agree
agree.
with that.
Rey really, she was involved with the ship, but not to the level those two.
I mean,
characters.
I could
Well,
see it staying around, like, as maybe Lando gets it back, and if Rey survives and maybe grows up and has kids or something, then, like, she might get it when he dies or something. Like, she
Yeah.
might get it down the line. But yeah, I don't know
Or-
if she has enough attachment to it to, like, demand that she wants it or anything, and I think
Let's
Lando
talk
and
about
Chewie
the
both
Millennium
do.
Falcon, because it is a character.
Yes.
I mean, it's technically L3.
yes.
Yeah,
That's
I
the
mean,
right number.
especially when it's L337, I think. But when I mean, when you've got Lando's attachment to the Falcon expanded upon to that level that it was in Solo, I think that presents an opportunity for a very emotional moment, sort of like when Luke walked onto the Millennium Falcon in not Return of the Jedi, in Last Jedi. We could have a similar moment when Lando walks back onto the Millennium Falcon, and I think Solo existing in the same way that Solo improves the symbolism of the dice at the end of the movie. I think Solo also potentially makes for a really compelling moment for when Lando gets back on the Millennium Falcon. That just an extra layer that we didn't know existed before.
Because Lando may
mean-
not know that the ship's been recovered at this point.
That's true. Not to throw a wrench in any of this, but the story of Galaxy's Edge dictates that the Millennium Falcon lands on Batuu and stays there perpetually.
Does it really?
Yes, because that is the Millennium Falcon's landing place. That is the like story of that ride. Is that you can now like go on
And
adventures on the
doesn't
Millennium Falcon.
Hondo now own
Yes,
it?
and Hondo now
according
owns
to
it.
that ride?
I did double check this after our last
So-
conversation. It only says that it got involved in one of Hondo's schemes and is
Does
being and is currently at the location.
Yes.
So you're
By
right.
the end of the
there.
movie, who knows?
Right.
So this
and
could
then
be
again,
like in the meantime potentially. I don't know.
And Lando and Hondo have worked together in the past. It's they know each other too.
Yeah.
So it's possible that Lando really got involved with the story, and therefore it's Hondo's
And I mean,
Yeah.
thing as well.
and Lando's that natural, like, he's going to kind of be involved with sort of Maz and potentially Hondo of if the Resistance is looking for some, outside of traditional means help.
the
that's
three of
Lando.
them working together.
Oh my gosh,
That-
that's
oh.
a dream. That like Lando, Hondo, and Maz all together, like, ooh.
And it makes sense for Disney to bring Hondo into this. It really does.
I mean, and that's mostly just being fueled by the description of that ride. We have no idea if Hondo's actually going to be in the movie, but man, it'd be cool.
yeah, exactly. It's and also his portrait being up in Maz's castle.
Yeah.
Means Disney definitely wants us to not forget about this character.
Who's next?
Oh, well, I think we've only got a couple left, but BB-8.
I would be really floored if BB-8 dies.
Yeah, me too.
I think he's kind of like, for my R2 theory, I think he kind of takes the mantle of R2's role.
Yeah.
So I think he lives.
I honestly don't know that I have a lot to say about BB-8 other than just he's great, and I don't think he'll die.
I think he is the only
He's
character
the
that
most
100%
competent
got a
character in the
pass.
entire trilogy.
I
He
know.
accomplishes literally everything. He does everything for Poe. He does everything for everyone.
He does everything for Kaz.
He single-handedly got Finn like to the Resistance. Like he's the most competent character, and I think he's fine.
And,
Yeah.
and he's got that role in Star Wars Resistance
I
right
think even if he got
now.
captured by the
He's-
First Order, he would somehow be able to convince everyone that he was like part of the First Order now, and
Yeah.
was just spying on. Like he's good.
Hopefully he won't use a trash can this time as cover, but that
And BB-9E saw through that a little too
Yeah.
easily, but yes,
I'm gonna say I will always call that droid BB-8
I love BB-8.
BB-8.
So cute.
because that is that droid. I don't know what they were thinking calling it anything else. BB-9. We'll just add on 1 to it. Okay. BB-8.
So, next is, and actually, we'll try to keep this short because we talked about this a lot in our last video, but Kylo Ren. I mean, I don't know what to say about Kylo Ren that we didn't say.
Yeah,
in
we
our
already
main
discussed very
speculation
thoroughly what we
video.
would want from him, dead
Um,
or alive. So.
Yeah, Cliff Notes, if he's dead, I personally would want it to be seen as tragic and preventable because of what happened with Luke. I would
I-
like to see him live, though.
Yeah, but I kind of predict that he will live.
Yeah,
I would be
it's-
surprised if he died
Me
because
too.
it's just going to be a complete remake of Return of the Jedi. I feel like if he dies.
If he's redeemed and dies, it's Return of
yeah.
the Jedi all over again. If he's redeemed and lives, it's interesting.
It's
maybe,
yeah.
maybe
Maybe he just dies evil, and I still don't think that's that interesting, but I guess you could go that direction. But yeah, I don't know. Like, there are a lot of
and it's not
possibilities.
necessary that the First Order be destroyed.
Yes.
If you're a Legends fan, you'll remember that in the end, peace really comes to the galaxy when the Empire and the Republic come to an accord.
Which is what I want to happen really badly in this movie.
Yeah.
Yes, I want Star negotiations for once instead of Star Wars. Let's just sit down at a table and talk because the First Order has legitimate points about what they want done in the galaxy, and I think if everyone talked it over instead of shooting each other,
I think
we would be
politics
so
in
much
Star
better
Wars
off.
is everyone's guilty pleasure. We
Yes,
all
I
complain
love Star
about
Wars
the
politics.
politics,
Oh, I don't complain. I adore the politics.
but when it's not there, it doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
And I have felt up to this point, there's there's not been a lot of politics.
I
the,
agree.
The First Order is interesting because they are a movement where, at least when you look at like how Cardinal views the First Order and Phasma, right? They are a movement born of legitimate grievances
And like
in the
Hux'
galaxy.
speech in the novelization of Force Awakens is much more nuanced than his just crazy sounding speech in Force Awakens.
Yeah. So they are the epitome of an organization that has a legitimate grievance to air,
And they're
but
going
they're
about
going
it
about
the
it
worst
in
way
obviously the worst way.
possible.
And it well, and in to a degree, it's almost not. To a degree, it almost is. You know, like Snoke is coming in and co-opting. You know, you've got this organization that gets these people from these poor planets, raises these children and says, you would have not had a home if not for us, and we are going to turn the galaxy into a place where that
Yeah.
can't happen anymore. And then Snoke comes along, co-ops that movement, makes it, you know...
See, but I don't
not-
think it was Snoke, because I think Brendel Hux did the same thing. Like, I think...
You think Brendel
Yeah,
Hux
I think the
wanted power.
founders, like Ray Sloan might have had a legitimate point and thought that they could do something good for the galaxy. But Brendel Hux was always kind of more in charge, and I think he always was going to corrupt it the way Snoke did.
Yeah.
And to tout the amazing narrative powers of Claudia Gray again.
Yes.
She opened up the possibility of the First Order not being that bad of a thing for me personally when she was discussing one of the characters in her books.
Ransom Casterfoe.
Yes, in Bloodline. I think it's Kostafis is the way they want it pronounced. But anyway,
Casterfo or something.
Casterfoe.
Yeah.
Yes, I love it. Ransom is one of those characters who really opens, kind of like you said, opens the can of worms on the idea of there are people who are legitimately sympathetic to some of the good that the Empire created in the galaxy. And that's not a narrative that a lot of people really want to see talked about with the First Order, because obviously they are the bad guys who are killing millions of innocent people. But I think it's interesting that we have played with that idea of there's this sliver of reality to their worldview. There's a sliver of there is a reason.
I mean, it's more
why
than
they
a sliver.
believe
It's
that.
even to the point that the First Order as an organization believes that the New Republic is so flawed and so corrupt that they couldn't even fight the system from the inside, because there would be no way that these people with them would have gotten elected.
Well-
There's no way that these people, like, from these poor planets, like, most of these planets don't even really have a spokesperson or anything, because they can't afford to send someone to Hosnian Prime to speak to, like, the council on their behalf. And in
Right.
Bloodline, we see people come to the council to speak on their behalf, and they still don't care. Leia's the only one who really listens and decides to go investigate on her own in
it's
this
more
one
of an
instance.
issue of and it's what's funny is what led to the rise of the Empire was the toothlessness of the Republic.
Yes.
Its inability
Exactly.
to solve simple problems
Yes.
that a normal government should handle regularly. Oh, trade dispute. Let's sit down and deal with it. No. Well, they've got a blockade going.
We're just going to sit back and see what
The
happens.
courts are working on this.
Could we get like a committee to go make sure that you're not
Maybe
not
you're just
lying,
making it
Queen
up.
of Naboo?
Yeah.
Yeah, like when the Queen of Naboo shows up and it's just like this is happening,
They're just
and they're
like,
just like, could
eh.
we like maybe double check you on that? Like what? Like just
And
Chan.
then the New Republic was just they were like, oh, we cannot let the Empire happen again.
Yes.
And then they actually took away the little bit of power
Yes.
the old Republic
They stripped
had.
all the power basically out of the Republic,
And
and
now
the
with
only
no
reason
Jedi,
it worked
it
was
was
with
worse.
Mon Mothma, because everyone respected her.
yeah,
And then
after
once she
Mon Mothma,
retired,
yeah.
they were just useless. They could do nothing to protect anyone in the galaxy.
Yeah, and I think the First Order is coming back in, and it's exactly what that name implies. It's order.
Yes.
What we had right now was toothless chaos that would cover a multitude of sins. People could do all sorts of horrible things, and because there was no one to check them,
Which
no
I
one
feel like we
cared.
should probably just do a video on too.
Yeah.
Just like the politics of the First Order.
So
and the
we'll-
New Republic.
We'll, get
We'll
ba-
come back to
We'll
that.
come back to that. We are way off topic. So
Yes.
next, we've already talked about Kylo. Obviously, I don't want to. We've kind of said our piece. I don't
We
want
did
to.
that.
I don't want to bankroll too much about on Kylo here. So Rey
Rey lives.
lives.
Yeah.
Rey lives hands down.
I would
I
be
don't.
really surprised if she dies.
I don't see a story in which Rey dies. I legitimately want to see us do some of those new Jedi Order stories, but I want it to be Grandmaster Rey. I want to see Rey create the next Jedi Order in her way, in a way that finally grows beyond the flaws of what the Jedi were.
Now, see, I'm really torn over this because, like, I do want to see that too. I do want to see Grandmaster Rey. I want to see what type of order she would create, if at all. But then, based on the conversation we had last week, I've really begun to wonder, like, you know, if to bring balance back to the Force is to disconnect people's ability to wield the Force, not to connect with it, but to manipulate it. You know, maybe she could sacrificially give herself. I think that would be a good ending to her story and a good ending to the series.
Well, there's
I think that's possible. I think the other thing that we talked about is also possible, where just everyone kind of has the Force. And I think that's probably more likely for a Disney Star Wars, because that's much more marketable if everyone's a Jedi.
there's
Marketability.
there's a,
Well, I'm sorry, but we're talking about the future of the
Marketability
franchise,
lives
so.
or dies.
There's-
That was a character in Star Wars.
there is an element of realism there
Yeah.
where, like, even if the idea is that, you know, in order to truly finally be peace in the galaxy, either light side or dark side, people need to stop manipulating the Force. And there could be an interesting story there. There could be an interesting discussion be had there. Disney's never going to let that happen because they need Jedi. Like, Disney is always going to need Jedi. They're always going to need lightsabers. Because if you do that, you then make it to every Jedi story you tell is now pre-episode 9.
Not necessarily. You could still do something where the Force changed its mind and is now back in this one kid. And
Hey, why not? That's the kind of...
episode 32,
like,
the child wakes up and has the Force now.
yeah. But I don't see a way... I do not
But we-
see this movie going
we
in any
have
direction
all of
where it-
eternity before these movies that have fantastic Jedi stories, fantastic Sith stories, fantastic wars that make what we've seen on screen look like nothing.
But I don't realistically see any way this movie progresses with Rey dying. Like,
I don't
see
either.
it, yeah.
I don't. But you know, also, it's the end of a 9-film cycle.
Yeah.
It's got to be big. It's got to be bold. It's got to tie it up.
Yeah.
And if we're perpetually wanting to see the 3 movies of Rey as a Jedi Master, it might not tie it up properly.
Yeah.
But I think an anthology film with her as a master would be great. I think a TV series with her as a master would be great.
I mean,
think
I'm
there's
even-
so much you can do with that. If
I'm
she
even to
lives.
the point where it's like, look, if after episode 9 they do just want to focus on anthology films that take place before the main saga, and maybe Grandmaster Rey is a story that's told in novels like it was in the original EU, I'm okay with that. I think the next... I do want to see, like, a legacy trilogy set, like, 100 years after this or something like that. Like, I do definitely want to see that. But if Rey herself, you know, as portrayed by Daisy Ridley, is not in any movies past this, then, you know, I think you can do that and be okay. But we'll just have to see what
I mean, I
happens
also
with
don't
her.
think it's unheard of for us to take another 20-year hiatus and then
Bring Daisy Ridley back.
bring Daisy Ridley and all this cast back in 20 years. Like, who knows?
Yeah, and
We don't know.
Yeah, I
We're
mean,
looking
this
at
is...
Disney. They can't close all the doors.
Yeah.
Everyone on our list has the chance of dying except for BB-8.
Yeah,
And
I agree.
Pretty much, basically.
Disney's not going to close these doors down completely.
Yeah.
And if they do, it's going to be huge and completely not just make you rethink this film. Whatever they would have to do.
I mean,
if they killed Rey,
JJ has
you would
talked
have
about,
to rethink
like,
the whole
he
series.
really went into this film expecting to tie up both the prequels and the originals. Like, it's not just a sequel to the originals. Like, he feels like he's going to tie in the prequels and stuff too. So
And now that we
it's
have
really
World
supposed to be a
Between Worlds,
celebration of everything.
everything.
And that's a huge. I will be surprised if this is not soon announced to be the longest Star Wars movie. I feel like it will be longer than Last Jedi.
I want to
At
see...
least they haven't done a 2-parter for the final one.
I really wish they would though. Like, I feel
I
like I would
want
be
it.
completely okay with having a 2-parter episode 9.
I say bring back the intermission.
Yeah, I agree.
Give us a 10-minute John Williams
And have like
musical
a 5-hour
interlude.
movie.
and
I
I
would be
would
so
sit there.
fine with that.
I would too. I think I would too.
And don't tell us beforehand.
just let us go
just-
and then be like intermission.
Yeah.
I would be so okay with that.
I don't know. I want to see Rey and Kylo going on a little romantic walk through the world between worlds.
Right.
Ooh, is that Darth Bane over there?
Ooh.
Oh,
Don't look that way.
But Yeah, so I mean, I don't see Ray dying. I think Ray and BB-8 are the two who are the most safe. But you know, who knows? And I think that's about all we've got really to say on that subject. I know we had a lot of tangents that I think could all be interesting videos in and of themselves for the future. So hopefully you guys enjoyed kind of our rambling on this. Who do you guys think is going to live? Who do you think is going to die in episode 9? Let us know in the comments down below. And we will see you guys with another discussion next Sunday. And I've been Matt.
I am Carly.
And I've been Rob.
You have been. And thank you once again for tuning in.